Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Legacy, the podcast where we delve into the stories that shape our lives and the lessons we carry forward. I'm your host, Cedric D. Nelson, and I'm excited to embark on this journey of discovery, growth, and inspiration with you. Each episode will explore the triumphs, challenges, and pivotal moments that define who we are and who we aspire to be. From personal stories to enlightening conversations with guests from all walks of life, we'll uncover the wisdom, insights, and perspectives that illuminate the path to a meaningful existence. Whether you're seeking motivation, guidance, or simply a moment of reflection, Life, Lessons, and Legacy is here to accompany you on your quest for fulfillment and purpose. So sit back, open your mind, and let's embark on this transformative journey together. All right, so my next question. So what goals? Did I ask goals already? I'm probably have to edit this out, but did I ask about goals or did I ask about goals already?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, I got you. Okay. Yeah, I'm getting.
Yeah, I mean, life lessons, I think just do everything you can to know yourself better and be aware of what you're doing and yourself. And for me, it was the life lessons really were how you feel about yourself is what people see.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does.
If you're walking, if you're always man, nobody says hey to me. Let's say, for example, when I go to work, nobody says hi to me. It's not because they don't like you. It's because you're projecting something that says, don't talk to me. Even though that might be the thing you desperately want. Yeah, I mean, for me, those are the life lessons. And like I said about not being afraid to do things that are uncomfortable, because that's the less you being uncomfortable means that you need to go learn that lesson. If you're about to make a phone call, let's say, I'm trying to think of a good example, but you're going to call somebody, ask them out on a date. Mm-hmm. It's a real awkward thing to do. Mm-hmm. That stuff doesn't get easier with time. You still feel nervous when you do that stuff. I'm divorced, so I've been single for the last 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. And so it's still weird how it's you feel nervous. And it's I don't know how many times I've done this, man. I'm still just hit the button and send the call and make the call, mm-hmm. Seek out those uncomfortable situations and mm-hmm. get over them. And then you'll see that you're not made of glass, mm-hmm. You're not going to shatter. Let's say that person says, no, I think you're ugly, John. I mean, it's happened before, believe mm-hmm. it or not. Not every woman's ever wanted to go out with me. I've been shot down, and that's cool.
Everyone has, yeah.
Right. I mean, that at least now you move on, man. So yeah, those are the life lessons. Just be okay with being uncomfortable, and everything just gets so much easier. And it really does. Yeah. If something's making you uncomfortable, that's an opportunity to figure out something about yourself.
Time to grow. Yeah. Makes you grow. Yeah, definitely. All right. So next question. So who has been the single most inspirational person in your life, past or present?
Inspirational? I don't know. Yeah, I saw that question. I'm I don't really know. I mean, I've got a few. I mean, it's weird because my parents, they struggled a lot with their mental health and things like that growing up. They, had issues with alcohol, things like that. But my dad, he struggled a ton being a father. But he had 4 kids, but he's kind of inspirational to me, even though he wasn't the best dad, because he just grew up in just awful conditions. Mm-hmm. He was thrown out on the streets of Baltimore when he was 8 years old, wow. But everything he wanted to do, he did. And it was in his high school yearbook, he said that he wanted to be my dad was a college professor at Ole Miss. And he was retired as a general in the United States Army. And he wrote, I've got him sitting right over there. He wrote 8 books, 5 or 6 books.
Okay.
But he did all that. And he, had 4 kids, a wife. Mm-hmm. He helped take care of my mom's mom. So his mother-in-law. I don't know too many guys that would want to take care of their mother-in-law. But yeah, man, he did all that in spite of really horrendous conditions that he grew up in when he was a kid. Yeah, and I forget, man, any mistakes that he made, I know he did the best he could.
Right.
both my parents showed up for me the best they could.
Mm-hmm.
It was just unfortunate that they had a lot of their own things that and they never really got time to confront their demons and things like that. So it is good, or they lived their lives the way they did, so I could confront my, like handle my, because they just didn't have time, man. Like that generation, they didn't believe it. They just put their head down. They just worked.
Yep.
And they didn't know there was a difference between surviving and living, like they survived, man.
It was the norm.
And he was one of them that he survived. And like I said, he put in his high school yearbook that this is what he was going to do. And he did it. And, there were a lot of odds against him. So, and my mom too, man, she did a lot of great stuff in her life. And, she didn't start out all that great either. So, yeah, oddly enough, I would say my parents, as inspirations.
Well, I think it's awesome too, John. I think when you're a child, you don't really understand it or appreciate it, I guess. Usually for most of us, I know I did it for my grandmother. When I was a child, as you get old, you start realizing like, man, like life be lifing. Like my, like you said, your parents were doing the best they could. And by them doing what they did, they did the best they could. They overcame all these odds, and it helped you to, be the better version of yourself. But I tell people a lot of times as parents, there's no manual, like there's no manual to like, hey, this is how you be a great parent. And then as a parent, you're always dealing with your own stuff. And when you have kids, you don't have time to deal with your stuff. You're like you say, you put your head down and you're just like, okay, I can get this done. So you might miss this or miss that or have this issue or that issue, but life is still coming every day. Like I still have to feed this child. I still have to pay these bills. So I can see that. I tell people all the time, man, it's not always like how you start, because as a child, there's nothing you can do about what you're born into. Like for your parents, my parents, whatever, nothing you can do about that. But everything after that, like you said, your dad set this goal of, I'm gonna be there for my family, I'm gonna do all this stuff, and he did it. So I think that's the awesome thing, man. Like we were talking about earlier, when you were born with, a car at 16 or, a trust fund, it's I'm not saying I guess it's easier to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go make this great life. But when you're starting off and you're the most successful person in your family, or you're the only person in your family that's like trying to do or be something different, it's different. That is something to inspire somebody, because a lot of people just don't, like they don't write books. They don't go become a general. They don't, there's just like, this is what it is. I give up.
Right.
And
you wouldn't have blamed them,
right.
Like, if you really heard about it, I mean, you wouldn't have blamed the guy for being like, I'm not going to do this, or I don't think there's no planet that I live on where I'm going to actually be able to accomplish these things.
Right.
Coming out the gutter, So yeah, man, I mean, that is, and I got two sisters that, they've done a lot of crazy, awesome things with their lives, like one of my sisters, she's woken up at like 4:30 in the morning every day to work out for the last 30 something years.
Really?
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, I mean, so they've done a lot of really awesome stuff too. So, and they're all, all my siblings are older than me.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's crazy what they've been able to pull off,
Yeah.
Because things weren't so easy for them either, but they're able to get over it and, have these huge accomplishments, man. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, even when you're talking about, 11 years, making 11 years, I like all this stuff is huge. And I think like, a lot of times for ourselves personally, we usually downplay. That's why I was happy to see your post. Like, hey man, acknowledge like, hey, like this has been a journey, like it's not easy. So I have one more question, then I want to kind of talk to you about that, that whole thing. So my last question before I ask you the next one, well, I have two actually. I always say every podcast I tell people I have two more questions. And if you listen to any of my podcasts, I'm like, two more questions, then it's four. So I'm gonna do better. But what do you think about legacy? Like, we all have a date that we will leave here. When that time comes for you, what is the legacy that you like to leave behind?
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. Just that I did my best, like, and hopefully I affect some people's lives for the better, and yeah, I mean, I would say just as long as I'm remembered as like a kind person that tried hard and
Mm-hmm.
Had integrity and,
Mm-hmm.
had values that they weren't really willing to, you know, I don't know. Yeah, man. I
Yeah.
mean, just kind of a guy that stuck to his guns, man. Stand up dude,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think as far as like, money and stuff like that'll go, like, I mean, yeah, I'll have some of that to leave behind. I've got two views and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, man. I mean, just as long as I'm known as somebody that, you know, was a good dude,
Mm-hmm.
like that's my main goal,
Yeah. Yeah.
everything else I think will kind of fall into place. And I'm not sure yet because I'm not done yet,
That's it. Yep.
hopefully I got a long way to go,
Yeah.
and you know, I might, hopefully I'll add on to that,
Mm-hmm.
and what I think. So,
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, we're still living, So, yeah. Two questions I've said two a few minutes ago. So, but if you could go back and talk to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself? Like something you would tell your younger self?
I mean, yeah, I think about that a lot. I mean, really, that you know, it would be more like just like everything's going to work out, everything's going to
Mm-hmm.
be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think now, like if I told my younger self now what I do, like how my life is now, I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
believe you. I'd be like, man, I ain't gonna do anything. I'm not. What are you talking about? Like,
Right.
that it's all gonna work out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I do believe God has a plan. Some people don't want to
Mm-hmm.
believe that or whatever, and that's fine. I hear a lot of people now being like, I've lost faith, in God, I've lost faith in the church over an election or whatever, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, man, if that's going to destroy your faith, it wasn't that strong to begin with. If you
Exactly.
don't believe there's a plan, like that's fine. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't believe that, that's cool. That's just me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that like everything does, in my opinion, work out for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to see that more and more every day. And it'll happen. Things will happen where I'll be like, oh,
Yep.
that's why I'm doing that, or that's
Yep.
why I did that. That's why that happened.
Yep.
Not every, things seem bad that did in the moment, and I understand, like, I guess less than 50% of Americans right now are upset
Right.
and think it's all bad. And
Mm-hmm.
I get the perception of that right now.
Mm-hmm.
But man, you don't know why yet. You don't know that something might happen a year from now to where it'll be like, oh wow, okay, everything's gonna be cool.
Yep.
So yeah, man, like, I mean, that's probably what I would tell my younger self, is and don't drink and drive, don't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that would probably be the first thing I would say.
Yeah.
Don't be that stupid.
Yeah.
But so yeah, man. I mean, but everything's gonna work out fine. Everything's gonna work out exactly the way it should.
Mm-hmm.
It just
Yeah.
might not make sense to you right now. It might never make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
You might never know what the plan was. It's just you either trust that or you don't. It's
Yeah.
hard to have faith in that, and I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. I piggyback off of that by saying I'm like you. Like I think when we go through adversity and challenges, it's kind of like God preparing us for what is to come. Like you say, it's a plan for all of us. And I think when you're going through it, it's like it's very hard to be like, thank you, God, for these problems, because you don't want to go through the problems, but you want the reward on the end, on the backside of it. So anytime I've been going through difficult times, I still go through them all the time myself. I thank God during the difficult times. So I'm like, there's a lesson in this somewhere. My perspective is there's a lesson in this somewhere. And as bad as things have been, I don't feel like God's ever really forsaken me. Like I always felt like God kind of had his hands on me, kind of guided me. Maybe sometimes he told me to go left and I went right, or, and then I pay the consequences for it. But like you said, I think just the younger generation knowing that there's a plan for you. And like, even when you're going through something, it may seem bad. It's like working, like you say, working out hurts. It sucks. I have to go in about an hour. I'll be working out. It sucks, but that's how you get muscles. That's how you get in shape. Like if it was easy, everyone would do it. And that's the same thing with life. Like you got to be willing to take the lumps. You got to be able to bump your head a little bit because a lot of times we don't listen to our parents. We don't listen to God. We just go out here and say we know everything. Like you said, when you're younger, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. You get older, you're like, oh, they had a little knowledge. They kind of knew something that I didn't know. So
right.
yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. I agree.
And
So
and when I was young, I wouldn't listen to me either.
yeah.
I'd be like, man, this old John Cook. I ain't.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but you got to go through it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
You have to.
yeah.
All right, so we talked about goals and everything. We talked about sobriety. So my question was, so kind of like, so how did it all start? Like, how do you think it all got started, and kind of what led to it?
What, like
Like
my doing drugs and
yeah,
drinking and
yeah,
stuff?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, unfortunately, my parents had addiction issues. That didn't help.
Hmm.
And it was just kind of like, man, I mean, I don't even know really. I mean, it just kind of, I mean, I started drinking or actually, I started smoking weed and things like that when I was like 13, 14.
Okay.
Then I went to French camp, and I will say one of the other things about going to French camp is you meet kids that have issues as well.
Hmm.
You meet a ton of them, and they're
Hmm.
from all over. They're from Memphis, they're New Orleans, like Dallas,
Hmm.
Seattle. Like, I mean, I know people all over
Hmm.
the country from that
Okay.
school. But yeah, man, I mean, when I got out of French camp, I was just like, I'm gonna do whatever I want, like nobody's telling me what to do ever again.
Hmm.
Except obviously the police. They told me what to do a bunch of times,
Uh-huh.
like, but I still had it in my head that I could do whatever I wanted,
Hmm.
But yeah, just drinking, I think unfortunately is just kind of like a family tradition. You there was a lot of alcohol in my house when I was growing up. My parents used to have parties and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And it's really not them. I mean, it's still my decision to do it. But yeah, man, I mean, I think it was just, I don't really have a good answer. And it just kind of, I started drinking
Hmm.
and getting high, and then just kind of just kept doing that until I was 35 or whatever I was.
Okay.
So yeah, it's funny how you can just like all of a sudden wake up one day and realize that you've made some pretty big mistakes,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that like, yeah, it's going to take a lot of work to unravel those mistakes. So
Hmm.
yeah, there was no real one incident where I was like, I'm going to go off the rails here, like, yeah, I can't really think of one thing that happened. I mean, it's unfortunately just an accumulation, I
Yeah,
think.
just gradually.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, just life kind of getting at you,
Yeah.
a little bit.
No, life be life, and yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
so what made you decide to like, okay, this is it. I'm about to change. I'm about to stop. What was that thing? And were you able to just stop cold turkey, or was it like, how did you go about it?
Well, with alcohol, like usually, because I had tried to quit before a
Hmm.
few times, but that was usually because I had done something stupid, or I was embarrassed because I did something stupid, and I was
Hmm.
like, I'm sick of living this way.
Hmm.
One thing I always tell people about, like, one of the things I love about not drinking anymore is that I don't apologize as much. I do think language and what comes out of your mouth is really important. So
Hmm.
when you're always having to walk around being like, "Man, I'm sorry about that shit I
Hmm.
did Saturday night," and like, I'm really sorry, I'm embarrassed, I'm sorry. Having
Hmm.
to walk around like that all the time, it takes a lot out of you.
Hmm.
But the last time I'd actually had like a lot of fun. I went out with friends. This is when I was in New Orleans, and
Hmm.
we stayed out all night. Well, everything was fine. But the next day, I was in my backyard with my dogs, and it was July in New Orleans, which
Hmm.
means like 175 degrees.
Yeah.
And I started coughing, and I passed out, and I woke up, and I like basically woke up in my flower bed, and I had thrown up all over myself. And my dogs are like looking at me like we don't know what to do.
Hmm.
And I just kind of like looked around and was like, man, I don't want to do this shit anymore. Like, I'm gonna kill myself if I
Hmm.
do. And yeah, man. So I'm like, there was another couple of times where I tried to quit for like my girlfriend wanted me to quit, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll quit. And that don't last.
Right.
But this is one time where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore
Hmm.
for myself because I'm tired of feeling this way.
Hmm.
But and like I said, I was on addicted to painkillers at that point. But and like I said, I didn't want to overdose in my sleep
Hmm.
on painkillers, because if you mix alcohol and painkillers, I mean that's a surefire way to kill yourself. It'll
Yeah.
slow your heart rate down.
Hmm.
while you're sleeping, and then you just kind of pass away.
Yeah.
Luckily I hadn't gotten to the point where I was cool with that,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that was the big thing. And then when I stopped doing painkillers, that really wasn't that difficult because I was never full blown. I was telling somebody about this a couple of months ago, and he just kind of assumed that like I was like a junkie, it was like, I need the painkillers, man, like
Right.
on my face. And
Mm-hmm.
when people do get that way on painkillers a lot, we've seen like Oxycontin and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But those are like really extreme cases.
Right.
I was able to maintain. It wasn't great, and I was lying to people, and I wasn't telling people the truth. But my ex-wife caught me with a bunch of painkillers, and was like, "What are you doing?" And just really one conversation with her, and I felt I was embarrassed,
Mm-hmm.
that I've been hiding this and
Mm-hmm.
lying to her, which I'm not a liar by nature. Like, so I don't like doing that. And then when I saw like how hurt she was,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, and what it was doing to myself, it was one of those rare moments where I was able to kind of zoom out and kind of see myself
Mm-hmm.
and what I was doing every day, and that I didn't need to do that, So, and that's really kind of when it started.
Okay.
But that's when the hard work really started, like
Yeah.
quitting wasn't a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like all that stuff you could detox alcohol, painkillers, stuff like that out of your system in a few days to a week.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else it's your mental. I mean, it's in your mind after that,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to figure out why you're doing this to yourself.
Gotcha.
And that's hard, man.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so with the I guess the path to stopping and it's going 11 years. I guess you say the hardest part is just actually having to do the work and knowing that every day is going to be work, I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and then like there are times where I miss it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, no, I don't have as many friends as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is because man, a ton of them are dead. Like I've got
Yeah.
way too many friends that are
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate. I mean, that's one of the reasons I made that Facebook post
Yeah.
is, like we went to high school. If you knew
Mm-hmm.
Brian Walker, but like,
Mm-hmm.
he passed away. And he'd been pretty bad off on drugs for a
I didn't
while.
know that. Yeah, I didn't
Uh,
know.
yeah, and he was probably one of the most talented people I've known. Yeah, he was a really good dude. Or like
Yeah.
Jay, like
Yeah.
me, they were really good friends, man. He drank himself to death. I've just known too many people go that route,
Yeah.
to at least not put it out in the world that like if I can't help, I will,
Right.
like um and man, I'm sorry, what was your question again?
No, no, no,
Because
you're right. No, no. I mean, you answered. You were talking about, just like kind of what made you decide to do it, and it's kind of like that's the hardest part because like I
yeah,
remember JD, and I remember like and stuff like that. Like I guess when you're younger, you just don't think like something like that would happen. Like okay, and then as you get old, you start. I tell people, I lost my brother, I lost my grandmother, I lost my niece, I lost my look. I've lost so many people, and this you start realizing like you start, I guess being more aware of your own mortality, like I'm gonna leave here at some point in time. So like, I want to, leave the best mark I can, and I don't want that to be my brother Jeff. I don't know if you know Jeff, we knew Jeff. He passed when COVID, like a year after COVID hit.
oh wow, awesome.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But I mean, he had, at one point in time, he was drinking a lot and all that, and he finally same thing. He's like, bro, I can't do this anymore. Like, I don't, I don't want to be this. I don't like he said, I don't like who I am when I'm drinking. Put it that way. You
Yeah,
know, so but yeah.
but I am that guy, like because yeah, I was, I know guys that they drink a lot
Mm-hmm.
and they're okay. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying alcohol is bad. I don't think any drug's bad. It's your relationship to it.
Right.
And my relationship to alcohol, like, yeah, I mean, it really shocks people when I tell people what I would like, because
Mm-hmm.
I've been arrested almost a dozen times,
Mm-hmm.
which that blows people up.
Right.
People hear it and it makes you feel good that they can't imagine that I would ever act like that or do anything like that.
Right.
And it's because I've never done it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, and I don't really blame alcohol. Like all that was me.
Mm-hmm.
I
I
did
get
that.
you. Mm-hmm.
Alcohol can't really change you or turn you into somebody different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's all you, It's just how angry are you really,
Right. Right.
For me, like I had to figure that out. Like, you know, like things didn't start getting better in my life until I started really taking a good long look as to what I was so mad about.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I so angry? When I would get drunk, I would get angry, you know,
Mm-hmm.
not all the time, but
Right.
enough. There were people out there that, you know, if they heard me say that, they'd be like, oh, yeah, dude, you get really, you know, like you get, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I would have people tell me I did things and I wouldn't believe them. Because, you know, they'd be like, dude, man, like Friday night, you know, swung on this dude or you did something.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I didn't do that, you know, and they'd be like,
Right.
oh, I'd be like, oh, shit. Like, I don't. I got to the point where I would just call people and apologize
In
and just
advance. Yeah.
like, be like, "Hey, man, I'm sorry, Cedric. I
You're
did
right.
that." Cedric would be like, "I mean, I didn't even see you."
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Oh, never mind." You know,
Yeah.
and be like, "Yeah, you should apologize, man." Because yeah, but yeah, I had to kind of accept that was me. I did
Yeah.
do that stuff,
Yeah.
and I had to figure out why I was doing it. You know, because
Yeah.
there's always a cause. It's always
Yeah. 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 I tell people all the time, I had some trauma, I guess, early on in my life, and it caused me to have a terrible temper. So
yeah,
most times I was in school, I was nice. I was, hey, cool, calm, collective. And I was usually nice to people so that no one would tick me off. So I would just lose my ish on somebody. But like you say, as I got older, I think that's the thing about aging, man. And we talked about, we're both in our 40s now. You start looking at like you say, once I finally got to the point of looking at why I was so angry, why I had this hair trigger temper, I was able to work through it. I was like, okay, this really isn't about me. It's about what happened with my mom and my dad, and this is what's causing me all these issues. I think
yeah,
when you're younger, you don't want to confront the fact that it's just something in me that's causing me to be this way. Like we try to, oh, it's such and such did this to me or whatever. It's like, no, I have this trauma and I haven't dealt with it. So when I am angry or do I do drink or whatever, it just this rage monster keeps coming out. I got all this anger I've been holding in, and I'm gonna let it out on somebody. So yeah, I think it's awesome what you say, man, and the fact that you're at a point even when we're talking now, like I guess that self-awareness, like you get it, like I got to be the best version of myself. I can't blame anyone but myself, and this is my journey and this is my story. That's why I want to have you on, because your story is inspiring, man. I mean, the whole time you've been talking about self-help and realizing who you are and kind of what led everything to where it was back then and what led to you being who you are now.
yeah.
Like it's awesome to me, man. This type of stuff I love to hear. Just that you get older, you don't want to be in our 40s and still act like we're in our 20s. So it's like, okay, we start realizing who we are and what we are. So it's awesome, man. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, you too, man. You know,
Yeah,
you're
it's
doing it.
crazy.
You know,
Yeah.
it's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, I'm gonna tell you something crazy. I won't hold you much longer, but
Uh,
yeah, even crazier is that we're in our 40s, man. And I don't feel old, but I remember being in like high school and seeing people in their 40s, like, man, look at that old dude, like
I know. I was thinking, I said that the other day. I was like, well, I was in high school, man. If you were over the age of 25, everybody looked old to me,
yeah, they were old, yeah.
which I don't get mad at kids, you know, like
No.
I was playing basketball because I'll still go play basketball. And I
Okay.
was playing with a bunch of they were probably 19, 20-year olds. And one of them said, first he said I look like an iguana. And, but I'd stolen the ball from him
Yeah.
like the very first play of the game, which I think I just took him off guard because
Yeah.
I am pretty quick.
Right.
And he said that he was like, man, you're pretty fast for your age. And I was like, man, I'm fast for your age. I stole the ball from you. We did win, by the
Yeah.
way. You know,
Right.
like, what are you talking about? My age.
Right.
I'm good for somebody your age.
Right. We're probably in better shape than some of them anyway, because these kids now are terrible. But yeah. Yeah, I'm like, you can't run down the court. Like, what's wrong with you kids? But yeah,
and
no,
again,
man.
Oxford High, man, I don't know. A lot of us still look really good, you
Yeah.
know. I
Yeah.
mean, I go on Facebook and stuff. I'm like, damn, man.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah, yeah, pretty awesome, man. Because you and I both, we ran to people before. You're like, man, think we're the same age. You like kind of look. I'm like, I don't know what's going on with this person, but yeah, man, I don't know, man. I think it's just awesome, man. Just one somebody, I do this podcast all the time, but I'm always excited when I talk to somebody from Oxford because it's a different experience when you grow up in Oxford. You go to Oxford High, and we know the same people. It's just that. Yeah, and the fact that it's been 20 some years is crazy to me too, because I'm like, it can't be 20 some years because I'm not that old, but evidently I am.
yeah.
Yeah, evidently I am. So
Man, I like getting older, man.
It's a blessing. I tell my kids all the time, like, I used to, when you're young, when you're like your 30s, you're like, oh man, I'm getting old. Now it's a blessing because again, you and I, we talk about, we know people who didn't make it to this age. So I'm thankful every year that I'm a year old. Every day that I wake up, I'm thankful. I'm like, okay, I got another chance to be great or to, to correct things I've done wrong or just be a great person, keep working on myself because I know people that honestly didn't even make it. They probably passed 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, we have, so I'm just thankful, man. I just yeah, I don't know. I'm awesome, man. But it's just awesome just hearing your story and just actually seeing like it was good to see you on Facebook again. I saw you. I got to reach out to him, man. This is awesome. Just because like again, we're all the same age, and it's just life be life in one. I said it all the time. And you never we all been away from each other so long that you don't know what any of us have been through,
Right. Yeah.
since high school, So.
It surprises people when I tell them,
Hmm.
that I had issues like that. And
Hmm.
that's another thing why I like being public about it because you're never the only one. That
Right.
is that is one thing that I've learned over the years too is that you're never the only one. You have a weird thought, say that weird thought because somebody else in the room is thinking the same weird thing you are.
Yep.
And I try to do that. Like sometimes I still get self-conscious. I'm a human, like I don't live in a meditative state.
Right.
But like when I do let loose and say the weird thing, there's always somebody else in the room that's like, dude, I was thinking the same thing. And now
Yep.
that doesn't feel so alone.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, man, I try to say the weird thing,
Yeah.
or the thing that maybe you shouldn't say or
Hmm.
whatever, just because somebody else feels the same way. Like I said, you're never the only weird person that thinks something weird. We're all weird, man. I mean,
We
we all do shit, and then
in
when
our
we
own way.
oh wow, we all are weird,
Yep.
like
Yep. Yep.
think
Yep.
that, man.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, exactly. Because I tell people like in high school, even in college, like you're trying to fit in, you're trying to make sure you're not weird. And then you get grown, you're like you say, yeah, everybody's a little bit weird. Everybody's a little quirky,
But they should be,
yeah, it should be. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's like, nah, I guess also I don't take myself, I take myself seriously, but I don't take myself so seriously that if I make a mistake, it's the end of the world. It's like, all right, I'm still living. On to the next thing, on to the next mistake because there's another one coming. It's like,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And I still struggle with that,
Mhm.
like yeah. I mean, that's a tough one.
Mhm.
But yeah, nobody's perfect, but I still want to be,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sometimes frustrating.
Hmm.
And that was the thing too that I said, like I can't tell you if you quit drinking alcohol, your life's going to be perfect. It's
Right.
not, like I mean, it will get better in some ways, and in
Hmm.
some ways, you'll have to let go of some things. You'll have to
Yeah.
let go of friends.
Hmm.
You can't hang out like if you want to quit doing the thing,
Hmm.
you're not going to be able to go do that thing. Like you're not going to probably be around that person anymore,
Right.
and that
Right.
sucks. I've got a lot
Hmm.
of friends that I just don't really talk to anymore.
Hmm.
They're still my friend. If they need my help, I'll help them. But
But
like, man, I don't, because I've got friends that are 45, 46, 47 years old that are still out there doing that shit.
yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know how they're still living, but
Right.
they
What
are.
Yeah, well, that was my question. I meant to ask you earlier. That's what I was going to ask you. So when you decided to make the change, did you have to lose some friends? You have to cut some people off. Like I can't be if I'm not going to drink, I can't be around people that are drinking. If I'm not gonna, whatever.
Well, yeah. I mean, drinking is not really a problem. Like, I
Hmm.
don't, like, I'll go to bars, and stuff like that, and hang out. It's just I'll leave. Like, drunk people get on my nerves, but that's not,
Right.
it's not because if anything, it just shows me like I'm really glad I don't do this shit anymore
Hmm.
because they really get on my nerves. And
Hmm.
I've got a good buddy here, and he's a good man, but man, he'll start drinking, and he really gets on my nerves. And I can drive away because I'm not drunk. Like I can
Right.
drive whenever I want.
Hmm.
I'll just drive off.
Hmm.
Like I won't leave my friend there, but like he can Uber. He's a grown man. Like
Right.
and tell him, be like, man, you can drink here all you want, but I'm leaving.
Right.
But no, I never really. There weren't too many people that I cut out, I guess, like, because I can still be around people, but I will cut them off. Like, I will, yeah, like I said, like, I will hang out with them up to the point where they start getting on my nerves because they're drunk.
Right.
And they can be mad about that. but most of everyone's always understood that it's like, I'm drunk. You don't want to be around that. I get it.
Right.
Like, so,
Yeah.
because the friends that I have that still drink, I mean, I love them. They're good people, man.
Mm-hmm.
They just do what they do, and not all of them have a problem like I do. So they don't,
Gotcha.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, but nah, I think a lot of people probably, I wouldn't advise somebody to keep trying to hang out with people that do that. I mean, it can be triggering. It just wasn't for me.
Gotcha.
Because when I'm done with something, man, I mean, I'm done. Like I ain't going back. Like I know that.
Yeah. Well, that's great too. Personality. I think a personality trait, which is good because you know yourself. Like, okay, well, I'm done. I'm done.
Right.
And yeah, and I think that's good. Again, the self-discovery, getting older, realizing like, okay, when I'm done, I'm done. As opposed to, I tell people, tell my kids all the time. My kids are 19 and 20, and I'm like, hey, look, don't beat yourself up. Like, get
Yeah.
to know yourself. Like, I'm like, you don't even really know yourself yet. You think you do, but you're 19 and 20. Like you haven't, you haven't even been in the world yet. You're like, you don't realize. You get to know yourself, be comfortable
Yeah.
with yourself, try to be the best version of yourself, and keep it moving.
Yeah.
Make some mistakes. I mean, it's part of life.
Everything just seems so important when you're that age.
Yep.
Everything's huge.
Yep.
Like, your relationship's huge. Your
Your
job.
friends, everything.
I get it. Especially how they're growing up now. I think.
Well, social media, especially now, because they think like I have to be an influencer. I have to be rich right now, and
Sure.
I have to. It's like that comes later, like a lot later. Like you just
They do live in a world though. Like, okay, so you can wake up in the morning and walk down the street. Something can happen where by the end of the day, a million people know who you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, overnight. Yeah.
Where it would take, maybe even years for a million people to find out you did that stupid thing in the street that day. But now
you're viral.
Find out by 5 o'clock how stupid you are.
Yeah. And you might be fired by 8 a.m. Like.
Yeah, man. I mean, or find out how awesome you are. So that can happen. It's just it's about as much of a shot as making the NBA or playing football or No, it's just the difference with those things is like you have some control over how much work you put in.
Right.
Social media, it's like, I mean, I guess, it might be work. I don't know. I don't mess with it a lot, but I mean, I've heard like social media influencers say that it's no easy thing to do.
I'm sure it's. I guess it's time consuming unless you got a team in place.
And you gotta get lucky.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on the show, man. I've enjoyed it. I hope the listeners have enjoyed it. Thank you again for sharing your story, and thank you for being a guest.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. This has been fun, man. Yeah, it's great. It's great to see you again, man. Doing your thing, man. Like, that's really cool, man. It's it takes a lot, So yeah. You say writing a book's easy. I don't know, man.
I got you. I help you. If you want to write one, just let me know. We'll go through it. I got you. I promise.
All right, I'll hold you that.
I got you.
It'll be weird, but yeah, we'll write a book.
Hey, like I say, if it feels weird to one person, it won't be weird to the next. Somebody thinks the same way.
Right, like I said, yeah, man. I'm never the only one.
Yeah. Nah, I got you. Let me know for real. I got you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No, this has been great, man. Like I said, it's good to see you, and yeah, man. Keep doing it.
Thank you. Same here. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Life, Lessons, and Legacy. I hope you found our discussion thought-provoking and inspiring. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback helps us to improve and reach more listeners like you. Remember, life is a journey of growth and discovery, and every experience, both the highs and the lows, contributes to the legacy we leave behind. So embrace each moment, cherish the lessons, and live with purpose. Until next time, I'm Cedric D. Nelson. You can find more resources, including my book, Life, Lessons, and Legacy: How to Take Life's Lessons and Shape Your Legacy. Available for purchase on my website at www.lifelessonsandlegacy.com. Also available on Amazon.com. On my website, you'll also discover information about my life coaching services and speaking engagements designed to help you unlock your full potential and live a life full of purpose. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you soon.